Social. I'm Richelle Wright. As always, I'm joined by Juan Buford to host this chat today, and we are so excited to welcome Aminta Charles. I love your name. I had asked you how to say it, but I love it. Of AXR Creative to have a live discussion with us today. So if you have questions that come up or any part of the discussion, feel free to pop them in the chat. We're happy to engage with you on it. But welcome, Aminta. Let's jump into it. Just tell us more about yourself, how you kind of got started with entrepreneurship, and essentially what led you to build AXR Creative.
So I've always been into different fields. What really pushed me into entrepreneurship is my family. They were always very big on being financially sound, like owning your own things and making sure that I have something for myself to build off of. So that's always been one of my big just motivations, period. Getting into creative work and actually doing creativity as a profession was more my partner. Working with him in photography shoots and just seeing where I fit into the whole dynamic was really inspiring for me to actually do it professionally instead of just a hobby.
Nice. So tell us more about AXR Creative. What exactly do you do?
So I work with creative people, and right now I'm in the capacity of photographers, videographers, and some influencers. And what I do is kind of like fill in the blanks of their inspiration and creativity and make their ideas really pop. So I'll do set backgrounds, I work on costumes, quick things on shoot with like directing and posing models, a lot of the background work.
Cool.
So I want to dissect this a little bit, do a little bit of a deeper dive, right?
Mm-hmm.
You mentioned something that really caught my attention right out the gate. And that was the fact that your family was already entrepreneurial, right? The culture was already there. So it's almost like it's in your DNA, right?
Yeah.
Because oftentimes, let's be real, when most individuals look to start up businesses, their family and friends are least likely to support them because most of them aren't entrepreneurs. So it can be difficult, right? How did being in that type of environment and being in a culture of entrepreneurship, how do you think that shaped you? What advantages do you think it's given you as opposed to other individuals who may not be fortunate to receive that type of support in the household?
For one, I think with almost anything, when you have a background in it, I knew what to look for when it came my time to do it. So like there are a lot of intricacies of you can't just put out a product, you can't just do a service. You have to actually think about the whole context of it and who you're supporting and where you're getting that funding from.
I love it. So basically, entrepreneurship is skilled trade.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so it's passed on to you. I like it. So you're doing this work with your partner, right? And of course, you have this entrepreneurial mindset. At what point did you decide, you know what, I'm going to do this? I'm going to start a business. Like, when did you fall in love with entrepreneurship? Can you remember the day or the week or kind of what was the sequence of events that made you say, you know what, I'm about to step out and make this happen?
So I think one of the first shoots that I actually fully took lead on, it was actually not that long ago. I would say around November, December kind of time of last year, where I was just on shoot and doing my thing. Like I was helping with the costume, I was doing background, I was doing assisting, and it just came so naturally because I've been in it for so long. But just the whole essence of I'm not the photographer, I'm not the model, I'm really just making everything work and work well. And I really just fell in love with it again because that's why I got into crafting. That's why I really do most of what I do. I like assisting and helping people in whatever way I can.
Okay. So if I'm hearing you correctly, you like to be the one pulling the strings. You like to be the curator. You don't necessarily want to be in front of the camera.
Definitely.
I'm so glad we have you in front of the camera today.
Yeah, I will if I have to, but I really, really like just making things better.
I love it.
Giving that vision.
So we were kind of talking off camera, if you will, before, and you said something else that really caught my attention, right? Because I find personally it's a mistake that we all make to one degree or the other. But you mentioned the importance of mentorship, how you have multiple mentors, people that you plug into. How important has that been in terms of your entrepreneur journey and help you achieve your goals and ambitions? How's that worked out for you?
It's one of my driving forces. Sometimes everyone needs somebody to push them along, or just somebody to encourage them or criticize them when they're kind of going a little off path. And my mentors, they've been amazing in that journey with me. Like when I need to tap in on like, does this look good, or is this like what I'm trying to really show? Like this is what I want, but is it what I'm showing? They're always there to support. And they're really just kind of like, they're the glue that holds me together when I'm holding everything else together. But everyone needs the support.
I love it. I love it. So you may already be aware of one of the things that really attracted me to you when we initially started talking and engaging and learning about each other was this like unabashed, constant positivity and enthusiasm for what it is that you do, right? Because you have a lot of entrepreneurs right now who have their head in the sand. You know, it's a pandemic. They're looking at the news. They're looking at social media. Everything's constantly negative. And people have, you have folks who kind of thrown their head in the sand. To be real, it's happened, right? And it's not to make light of the trauma and everything that's transpired, right? COVID's taken lives. You got 40 million people filing for unemployment. I mean, it's serious, right? The conditions on the ground aren't necessarily the most positive. Matter of fact, it's bleak in some respects. But nevertheless, you've kept this positive attitude. You've kept your foot on the pedal. You've continued to build and do it with, like I said, that enthusiasm and that incredible smile. Where are you drawing strength from? Where are you drawing inspiration from? What do you think has contributed to the fact that you have done the exact opposite? I mean, you're out here getting it in, pivoting, and doing all the things you need to do.
Really, it's all about the support system. Again, like my mentors, two to name a few. Donald from Stylist, he's always posting and always in something. He's still working from home, but like he really inspires me that you don't have to let not being able to see people stop you from like making connections and networking. And another one of my mentors, Chuk, Christian, the innovator, he is amazing and he loves to be out. And even though he can't, like, pandemic, no one can really like be close with each other. He's all out and making sure he's getting sun, making sure he's getting air. And like when I feel like I'm cooped up in the house, I'll tap in and make sure that I just like get what I need. But also friends and family, like personally, I realized that when I was reaching out to other people and checking in on them and making sure like they're good at this time, like whether they choose to work, whether they choose to sit in, like whatever they're doing, just tapping in really helped me because it's like we're all in the same boat. Literally, we're all in the same boat and we're going to have good days, bad days. But like when I'm having a good day, I can reach out to people when they're having a bad day and it kind of like works off of each other.
I love it.
Yeah. So because you talked about this, Joanne, you're pivoting. How have, with taking all that energy and being motivated and having those good days, how have you pivoted a little bit with what you've been able to do and maintain?
Definitely. So what I used to do was hands-on, like on the set, working with the models, getting them dressed, and then like putting the shoot together, which doesn't really happen right now and it shouldn't. But what I have done, especially to just tap into the community, is reaching out, using Instagram a lot, reaching out to people who I think are creative, who inspire me, who I want to work with in the future, seeing what they do well, seeing what they can work on. It's kind of like half and half inspiration, like Pinterest board type, but also just like a way to see where I really fit and where my specialty and services can fit into people who are already doing amazing things.
Yeah, I like that. I like that you've taken this time when maybe you can't do your traditional work that you were doing, but this gave you the time to now meet all these people that you can do all this future work with, which I think is great, because networking or connecting with others, sometimes we put that sometimes at the bottom of our list because we got other stuff we got to get done first. But I love that you've been able to make that the new job, the new priority, so that, I mean, I'm sure with the work you've done, you're setting yourself up for a lot more work when you're able to get back to it.
Hopefully.
Yeah.
So, something that I'm really curious about, Aminta, is how this pandemic is impacting individuals, right?
Mm-hmm.
I tend to believe that, and maybe because I'm hot-wired like this, right? As an entrepreneur, I'm thinking to myself, well, if you still believe in job security, you might as well believe in the tooth fairy. So why not, right? You're at home, underemployed, unemployed, or maybe not able to do what you're traditionally accustomed to doing. Why not start a business? That's my natural thought process. Mm-hmm. But I know not everyone thinks that way, right? And of course, I'm really tuned in to my peers and what they're up to. But I'm really curious to know from your perspective as a young entrepreneur, for all intents and purposes, you're still launching. You're in the beginning stages, right?
Yeah.
How do you think this pandemic is impacting your peers? How do you think it's impacting individuals who are at the stage of their lives where you're at right now?
I think it's a two-piece thing. Before this pandemic, especially in my personal circle and community, I've seen a lot of people growing their businesses regardless of what field it's in. Mm-hmm. And I think they were doing that before, and they're still doing it now, but just in a different way. Like myself, it's I think a lot of people have realized that themselves as a brand is much more powerful than whatever product or service individually they do. And I've seen so many people also reconnect with their own art or their own interests and loves, and realizing that, yes, there are essential workers who we love and care about who are keeping us safe right now in these times, but that doesn't discredit the work that we're doing. There's a bunch of DJs who I've seen like on Instagram reconnecting with DJing because they realize it motivates people. Like a lot of the services or products or art that individuals have do benefit others. And I think young people are realizing it's a lot of worth in it. Like regardless of what your day job is, or if you have a day job, it's a lot of benefit and worth in putting out your product or your specialty.
Mm-hmm. So I remember I was doing a little bit of research on this, and there was a lot of studies coming out about how millennials were, and none of these studies are ever accurate, right? Just people spouting their opinions, but you had a lot of content coming out about how millennials are not necessarily the most entrepreneurial in the first place, right? I don't necessarily believe that, but hey, it is what it is. Do you think this pandemic is going to inspire more of your peers, right? Individuals to actually adopt entrepreneurship as a way of life? Or do you think it's going to inspire more people to do the exact opposite, right? To clean even harder and to pursue a quote unquote job with even more verve than they did before? I mean, how do you think these conditions are really going to impact people at the end of the day?
Well, for one, I would say with a lot of the studies, I think they're so focused on the word entrepreneur that they're not actually just recognizing the essence of it. Entrepreneur comes in a lot of different terms, and just because you don't think that one term fits you doesn't mean you're not doing the work in Detroit hustle. And there's so many people I know who have so many different hustles, and that's their way of entrepreneurship, making sure that they get the necessary funds, the necessary work they need to provide for their families. There's people who have plenty of side hustles that maybe because of this pandemic will actually come to the forefront, that they can realize this is a full-time job for me. I can make this work and I can see this through because at the end of the day, it's what I'm good at. And it's something that no one can tell me I'm not.
I love it. So at this stage in your entrepreneurship journey, talk to us a little bit about some of the toughest lessons you've had to learn. What are the times where you felt defeated or questioned your path, if ever, right? And how did you overcome?
I was actually thinking about this, and me right now in the present with my company, I haven't really faced too many struggles because I'm very motivated in what I'm doing, and I do have the skills and I do have the knowledge for what I'm doing. But that doesn't mean I started off this way, definitely. When I was first learning, most of the crafts that I know that helped me today, I never took it seriously as a job. Like, it was always a hobby. It was something I was good at. If I put a little more work in, I could be better, but it was nothing I really spent too much energy on. And I think that's partially because of my family and partially just because of my personal drive. Before, as much as my family is entrepreneurial and financial, art is not always the I want to see my kid a starving artist. Like, no one really looks for that typically. And my family was the same way. I ended up going to college and getting a degree in sociology, psychology. And the craziest thing is, like, the more I was educated and the more I was around people in like a higher education setting, the more I realized, like, you just got to make yourself happy. Jobs come and go. Professions come and go, but at the end of the day, you got to do stuff you really like to do, and like, everything's going to be work, but what do you actually wake up in the morning wanting to do? So that's like been my struggle of, is this something that I wake up in the morning wanting to do? And I realize it is. So that's why, for now at least, it's been going really smoothly.
All right. So talk to me. What's some of the biggest, I guess, misconceptions that you like to clear up in terms of how people respond or what they believe about your profession or what you do?
Well, I also want to add too, because I really want you to answer that question for us well, because not that you won't, but like, because I think that people think that as a creative director, I think people don't really understand like what a creative director, how necessary and important for that is for the success of the project.
Yeah, definitely going on that. My job is not always understood. Point blank, period. Not everyone knows what I do, how I do it, or any of those things. And what I realize, like, what makes me really special in what I do is that I could put out DIY videos. I could teach you everything I do, but can realistically put it together and see it out in your work? Maybe not. And especially not the way I do it. So for me, creative director is really just a big title to say that I work behind the scenes I really direct and create an image that the whole team agrees on. So I'll work with the makeup artist to make sure that the makeup they're doing fits the look. I'll work with the model to make sure that the posing they're doing fits the concept. I'll work with the photographer or videographer to make sure that they are providing everyone the resources that they want. So like, if you're doing editorial, going back from beauty shots to editorial to make sure that the makeup artist has her pictures, the model has their pictures, and then the creative photographer or videographer also has their video or photography that they want to put out to the world. Making sure everyone's kind of like getting something out of the equation. But I understand, like, for some people, they're not at a time where they want that direction. They just are learning their craft, and that's perfectly fine. For me, a misconception I can see is kind of like the appearance of doing something. A lot of my work is hands-on. Almost all of my work is hands-on. There's so many times I've been like literally right behind the model, fixing her hair, running out of like so many times. And just because I can't physically give you a product, I can't give you the end result, doesn't mean that I haven't had a touch in everything. Like, a lot of the work I see that ends up being put out is like, when people are commenting, they'll say, oh, that was a great look, that was a great makeup job, that was a great this or that. And I had a lot of influence in, of course, everyone individually has their talents, but I had a lot of influence in making it all work together.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that speaks to as well just this underlying, you have to be a leader. You have to be a leader in what you do. So I guess if you could touch on a little bit on, with all the moving parts that you're having to manage, what do you find helps you be the most effective leader for things like that?
I think the biggest thing for a leader to do is know how to listen. You
Mm.
can lead anyone if you are listening to where they want to go. Um, for me, I personally take that time. A lot of my formal degree was in communicating interpersonally. So really like one-on-one conversations to which helps me to get like the vision across the best way. So I'll be in the dressing room with the model, like what look are you trying to get across? And then I can better support them in posing. I'll talk to the photographer on like what are you trying to create? And that helps me with my backgrounds and that helps me with like putting the look together to fit that image. But at the end of the day, I have to listen to the team and then I can tell them like the best route to get to wherever we're going.
Yeah.
So when I listen to you, Aminta, what I start thinking is I almost see your job almost like akin to a project manager, or now that I reflect on it even more, you're almost like a movie director, right?
Yeah.
Because people are coming to you because they want to curate an experience, right?
Mhm.
They want to curate a show, if you will, right? That's what a lot of it is, a certain type of look or a certain type of branding, a certain type of experience they want to communicate to their audience. And you're kind of like the film director, making sure everything works, everything's in place, right?
Yes.
You're accounting for all the details, literally from what people see in terms of people's appearances, where they are positioned at, the background, the lighting, everything. I mean, it's important what you're doing.
I would hope so.
That's a big deal. That's a lot of responsibility.
It is. I personally, I love organizing to a fault. So it definitely calms me to like make sure I'm thinking about all those pieces. So it helps in my personal life and also professional life. But one of the biggest influences for my like just professional background, I put together events and I've done kind of like event planning and decorating and things like that. And that, like the skills in event planning and decorating a space has definitely been one of the most valuable skills in this job. Really knowing timing, knowing how to talk to your vendors, knowing how to make sure that everyone is on the right timing, everyone is put together in this space definitely helps me when I'm juggling multiple creative people in the same space. So definitely like seeing those skills that crossover is always helpful for me personally.
So, within the entrepreneurial ecosystem, we inevitably have those individuals who may even be listening to this and get inspired, right?
Mhm.
But we have a lot of folks who are out here and they'll read one book, they'll watch one YouTube video, and now they're entrepreneuring, right? They're coaching.
Done. So that's it. Okay.
Right. And so oftentimes it makes it difficult to distinguish yourself, right?
Mhm.
I tell people all the time, I feel like 50% of my day is spent fixing $5 haircuts, right? There are many days where I feel like I'm literally just fixing $5 haircuts, right? So what should individuals be checking for? What should they be looking for when they're trying to make a decision and discern, okay, is this person, do they have the skills, the chops to help me with this project? How do you separate yourself?
I really think that my work and my like experience with people speaks volumes for me at least.
Mhm.
I make sure that I take the time to connect with my team on whatever project I'm doing. And I try to keep up my relationships with those people at least to make sure that they were happy at the end.
Mm.
Like I said, I can make a DIY video. There's a bunch of YouTube videos on how to make things, but you can't do it the way I do because you don't have the relationships that I do. So,
Okay. All right. So for those individuals who are listening to this and they're saying, you know what, I want to connect with her, right? I want to be on the team. I want to get involved in some of the projects the mentor's involved in. She's the real deal, right? What are some of the attributes, talents? What are you looking for in prospective partners or individuals that you're going to work with on a given project?
This is always evolving as I grow, but right now, I think the best people that I like to work with personally are people who already have visions or projects in action that they kind of put on the back burner. Like for me, this is the perfect time to help you create your vision that you kind of forgot about for a while and don't really know, or you forgot because there was like one piece missing or one little thing that just didn't seem right about it, and then you kind of never got back to it. That's where I feel like I come in the most helpful, where I can see what you already have and tailor it and make it that piece that you always wanted it to be.
Okay.
I love that because it's like your job allows creative people to stay in their creative genius, and you can just, you allow them to, because there's so many other pieces that go into putting out art or putting out, just getting it done, right? And as artists, a lot of time, or creatives, we just want to do that creative part. And your genius allows them to be able to hone into that and not have to worry as much about how it all came together. So it's cool.
Thank you. Yeah, like I said, I've done so many like different hobbies creatively, like crafting and photography and all these things. So I have a perspective at least of what goes into it, but I always love just the background part of it. So for me, it inspires me to do the background and show a vision, but also like I do recognize that it helps people who really just want to click and shoot or really just want to show up to a set and pose. Like that's where I come in.
I love it. I love it. I mean, I know from conversing with individuals, there's a lot of misconceptions out there about creatives, right? And the type of work that you do and whether or not it's really valuable. But I think one of the greatest things I'm taking from this exchange right now, I mean, is you're a job creator. You're out there literally creating opportunities for other individuals, and that is invaluable, right? You're making sure that these artists find work and that individuals who are connected with these projects find work. I mean, you're making an invaluable contribution to the community, Aminta. And I just, as I was listening to you, that's what I was thinking. And I wanted to share that. I think that's one of the biggest misconceptions people have about the work and the space that you work in. And you are like just crushing it. You're hitting that right. You're hitting the nail right on the head. I love it.
Thank you.
Yes, yes. So what kind of work do you enjoy doing most? What are the projects that really get you the most excited, right? What industries or markets do you feel like, you know what, when I get this type of job, this is my ideal client, I can get up for this?
I love when I really get the full freedom to just go all out on a project. So like the bigger the set, the more intricate the idea, that's what I really thrive off of. I love like really putting in all my like focus on creating something unique and never before seen. Um, I haven't really put my mind or set my heart to a specific like vendor or like campaign that I really, really want to work with. Mostly because I think there's so many different fields that are amazing and like people that are amazing that I don't want to just say like I want to do this one time. Like I would love the challenge of working with a big brand or someone who's like very much out of my like ideal of creativity and making that beautiful. I actually thought about that really like in depth too, because of one of my favorite classes at U of M was a dance class.
Mhm.
Very unconventional. It was actually about improv, and the whole concept was improv. So it brought together dancers, musicians, and whoever else wanted to take it to learn the art of adaptability, essentially, in whatever form that you're doing. And seeing like all the crazy things we did as assignments, like I went ice skating on a lake that was like it was like insurged with sound. So every time we skated, there was like music playing. And
Oh
I
my God.
really like the challenge of like making things work. So I would love to work like with something like that again, or something
That's so cool.
just out of the box.
I love it. So, man, so many different directions we can go with that. I love it. That's fascinating. Okay. So, I guess one of the things that I'm thinking about as I'm listening to you is where do you draw inspiration in terms of your peers, right? Are there other professionals or other even companies that you look at and you're like, you know what? Um, you're taking direction or you're getting good ideals. I mean, where do you go to ideate? How do you learn about different ways of doing different projects? How do you become better at what it is that you do?
I feel like me just scrolling Instagram and like intentionally scrolling Instagram has helped me so much, because I really get to kind of fall into a good rabbit hole of creative like posts and creative people, recognizing like unique new models, unique new brands, things like that. What I will say, regardless of like a big company or a person who's starting, like who's building a following, what
Mhm.
really draws me the most is kind of like that want or attention to growing in a different field than what you're used to.
Mm,
So, like a lot of campaigns, like big campaigns like Under Armour and Nike, with representing women or just people that they've never really represented before, inspires me. Like with creating the hijab, running, um, like the running hijabs, so that people can be the best athlete, even if there's a like religious reason behind it, or the ableism, and putting more people who are thought to be either disabled or
mm,
not custom, like into these ads, because everyone has an outlet for art, for sports, for whatever profession they're in. And just because they don't fit the old version of it doesn't mean that they can't be seen in this new version that we're creating. So those are what really inspires me, people who are pushing those boundaries of trying to represent themselves in this new kind of facet.
cool. I love it. Um, so you have, of course, entrepreneurs who are listening to this and will end up listening to the replay. And one of the questions that we always pose is, what lesson would you like to impart, right? What advice would you give to other entrepreneurs, whether they're grappling with how to stay focused and how to stay active during this pandemic, or quite frankly, even beyond the pandemic, right? Because at some point, this is going to come to an end, at least some of the more um, difficult parts of what we're experiencing right now. And what advice would you dispense to someone who wants to be an entrepreneur based on your life experience?
So for me starting out, I recognize that I don't have like the 20 years of experience or plus, excuse me, but one thing I have realized for myself, and that has carried me so far along the way, is a healthy version of self reflection and self criticism.
Mm,
Realizing, like, yes, you can start a business, anyone can start a business, and it is feasible, but is it something that benefits you, that benefits others, and is it necessary? And
mm,
like really sitting in yourself of like, are you going through the motions because you want to be an entrepreneur, are you going through the motions because it's something that you would want to do, whether you're making money or not? Like, that's the best advice I could give. Just be very honest with yourself in, is this the right field to be an entrepreneur?
Okay. I like it. It's powerful.
Yeah, it's important. I think that's probably not discussed enough. That self-reflection of, yeah, I think there's so many things, right, that we could do and build businesses around, and I think that's an important thing that you said there of, would you do this even if you didn't make money? And how valuable that question really is to ask yourself.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It takes.
Go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say, it takes time. And for me, I'm only 24 years old, but this has been like a lifelong journey of learning my craft and really sitting in on, like, is this what I want to do professionally? And for me, it is. But I think for a lot of people, even if they're already in that process of entrepreneurship, like, it gets hard with all the background, the legal, the paperwork. It can get hard. And what carries you through those hard things, in my opinion, is loving it, like really either loving it personally or feeling like this is a necessary good.
I love it. You just answered the question I was going to ask, right? We have this conversation all the time that, I just firmly believe you can't put your life's energies behind a compromise. And if you don't really believe in what you're doing, entrepreneurship is not a cakewalk. I mean, like you said before, if you don't have certain resources around you, if you don't have people who have your back, who want to see you win, when you get kicked in the teeth, it's difficult to keep moving, right? And I love the fact that you spoke to that. As I'm listening to you, I'm thinking about these business owners or entrepreneurs that I know now. I'll be transparent. Let me stop trying to be cute about it or coquettish. I mean, these folks out here are just hustling, right? The biggest thing that's driving me insane right now is all these people who want to start face mask businesses. I'm like, are you kidding me? It's like, come on, this has a shelf life, right? And it's not a good way to necessarily build a brand. And I think when people are looking at your work, whether they're viewing you indirectly because of social media, or when they shake your hand and they start listening to you talk about what it is you do and the passion that you exude about it, that's part of the brand, and that matters, right? That gives you staying power. That allows you to be in a situation where you begin to attract the things you want in the business that you desire, as opposed to having to chase and run people down, right? It takes you out of sales and puts you in a position where you're just educating and you're really just letting your light shine and living your best life, and people, they gravitate toward it. You create resonance with folks. So I love the fact that you've talked about that a couple of times throughout this entire interview. Thank you. It's such an important lesson.
Thank you.
Yeah. So a question that we pose to individuals, right? This is our opportunity to be a little bit goofy or have a little bit of fun, right?
Mm-hmm.
So what do you think your superpower is, or what is your spirit animal?
Or if you know both, that's even better.
Yeah.
Okay, first and foremost, I always tell people that my spirit animal is a penguin because honestly, it goes along with my superpower. I think I'm super adaptable. And penguins, sometimes they can look a little awkward when they're above ground and just like waddling around. But when they're in their element, they're there. Like, they're so graceful through the water. They are like amazing at the great things that they do. And yeah, they can be awkward in some situations, but it doesn't matter.
I love it.
We appreciate the penguin even when it is awkward.
Yeah.
Your superpower.
My superpower, something that I've like kind of come to terms with, especially nowadays, is I really feel like my superpower is being a shoulder realistically. Like I definitely have found that a lot of people, because of who I am, like really gravitate towards me and just like really sitting in and like being a understanding person to talk to. I think that's like the best superpower I could ever have.
Yeah, being a good listener is absolutely a superpower.
Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. Last question, and I think start wrapping up here unless Rochelle has some things that we need to tease out here. For folks who are listening and trying to ascertain what business and life is going to look like post-pandemic, right? And I think that means something different to all of us, right? In terms of how we're going to operate, what we anticipate, or quite frankly, what we're most excited about, right? How do you respond to that? What goes through your mind? What are you thinking about as it relates to building your business and building your brand post quarantine and pandemic?
Realistically, just continuing to do what I do right now, as in build relationships. Sorry, it's getting very sunny. Yeah. Building relationships and like maintaining them, not just I want to work, let's figure this out and then we're done, but like really maintaining those relationships, because if someone decides to pick up where they left off years ago, I still have that connection to really grow and maintain clients.
Excellent.
Yes, indeed.
All right, Aminta. What's the easiest way for people to get in touch with you? If they've got this project, they know that you're the one to do it, or just to talk with you more about it, because having creative outlet brains to continue discussing with is always good.
Yeah. So right now, my two main platforms are Instagram, where my handle is at AXR.creative, and then my LinkedIn, which I know not many people use, but I still use it. My LinkedIn is just my name, Aminta Valmon, V as in Victor, ALMON -Charles. And my email is the same as my Instagram handle, axr.creative@gmail. I do read emails and I do read messages, so you can feel free to send me a book if you want.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much for joining us. This was lovely. It's always fun to talk creativity, with entrepreneurship. I think every aspect of entrepreneurship is going to have creative elements of it, but this was a good way to start a Wednesday, having discussion about art and that stuff. So we appreciate you for being here. Anyone who's watching, if you joined halfway through or you're catching it now at the end, do not worry. As soon as we're done, you can watch it whenever you want, 10 times, share it with your friends. If you have questions for Aminta, pop them here. We'll make sure she gets them. Reach out to her. Otherwise, we will see you guys next week talking about something else. Thank you again. All right.